I wanted to share during this season we read about the birth of Christ. I think it's also important to take in consideration the other birth that took place with Elizabeth. And in your spare time, I would recommend that you read Luke chapter 1 that goes into detail about both of them. Elizabeth becoming pregnant and also Mary. But I do want to read the 37th verse of the first chapter of Luke. And it just simply says, God can do anything. And I think oftentimes that we go through the Christmas season and we know about the Jesus story and we leave it at that, just a story that we read and that we learn about during the Christmas holiday. But if we really think about what was done in both of these instances, is something that we should keep in mind at all times. So looking at Elizabeth and looking at Mary, they are on opposite sides of the spectrum. Mary's young, Elizabeth is older. Mary's a virgin, Elizabeth is barren. And you can make the argument Mary wasn't expecting this, where Elizabeth was waiting in expectation for it. The only thing that these two women have in common is they just so happen to be giving birth, and they are both in unusual circumstances socially. Mary was in the process, or engaged was in the process of being married, so it was socially unacceptable for her to even be pregnant before marriage. Elizabeth, I won't say it's socially unacceptable, but socially she was considered not to be able to have a child. She was considered past her years. But yet God did this exceedingly abundant thing in two women's lives that are on two opposite sides of the spectrum. And I think we read it and it's a cool story, but in reality it's something that we should be grateful for. It's something that we should look at our lives and look at our future and look at the life that we desire in the will of God and be hopeful that He was willing to do two amazing works with two women in two different circumstances. When I read it a few weeks ago, it encouraged me because it made me realize it doesn't matter where you might find yourself. It doesn't matter what circumstances you find yourself in. God is able to do an exceeding abundant thing. And a verse that I've recently fallen in love with is, now unto Him that is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all you can ask or think. Even that part alone, I don't think either of these women thought they could be pregnant the way that they were. Whether you're Mary, you were young, or you're Elizabeth and you were older, I think they both didn't necessarily think this could happen. Even though Elizabeth was waiting, it was still socially taboo for it to happen. So when I think about the scripture, is not just something for the Christmas season. It's something that we should keep in mind going forward, that I think it was intentionally done to display that God can do anything. Even if you read the additional verse before it, it says that your relative Elizabeth is pregnant. She's very old, but she is going to have a son. Everyone thought she could not have a baby, but she has been pregnant for 6 months. And the fact that the following verse simply says, God can do anything, makes me understand that it was intentional. So I challenge you to, if you have a verse for the year or a verse for your life, God can do anything. God displayed His power out to start in the New Testament with doing two mighty things with 2 willing participants. And the angel simply said, God can do anything. So as you continue to go forward, if you don't remember anything else, remember that God can do anything.